On a quiet morning in downtown Park, Colonel Lysandra, a black woman who has served in the military for more than 20 years, comes to inspect the area in preparation for a major military exercise. Although she did not wear a military uniform, her confidence, strong demeanor, and professional attitude clearly showed her position. When Colonel Lysandra entered the restricted park area, she felt confident in her role and responsibility. However, Officer Riley's arrival quickly changed the atmosphere. As soon as Riley approached, his gaze was filled with doubt and prejudice, which made Lysandra feel uneasy. Riley began to question her authority, his tone insulting. Lysandra sensed the hostility in the way Riley looked at her, as if he couldn't accept a black man in a position of power. She tried to stay calm, insisting that she was an army officer and had valid papers. However, each of her words seemed to make Riley even angrier. As Riley begins to make discriminatory remarks, Lysandra feels anger and frustration rise. She fought not only for her own rights, but also for the honor of all women and people of color in the military. She decided not to let herself succumb and continued to try to defuse the situation. "I'm just doing my duty," she said, her tone calm but steadfast. However, tensions increase when Riley pulls out a gun and threatens her. In that moment, Lysandra felt a deep fear, but she did not allow herself to panic. Instead, she focused on keeping the situation out of control. She took a deep breath, trying to hold her posture, and told Miller, "Stay calm. I'm not your enemy." Lysandra knows that her actions affect not only the individual, but also the community. She felt a great responsibility, not only to protect herself but also to protect the image of women and people of color in the military. Her courage and steadfastness in that terrifying moment was not only a personal battle, but also a fight against prejudice and injustice in society. Despite Miller's aggression, Lysandra was determined not to let herself be defeated. She understood that if she didn't stand up, she would not only lose her power, but she would also lose the opportunity to make a difference for others. In her heart, she felt a fire of determination burning, pushing her to continue her fight for justice and equality. When Colonel Lysandra realized that the situation was getting serious, she felt a wave of anxiety rise in her heart. Although she tried to calm Officer George Miller, his aggression made her feel like she was standing in the middle of a storm. She knew that if she didn't act immediately, things could get out of hand. She decided to call the mayor of the city. In the moment of waiting, Lysandra's mind was whirling with thoughts. She felt fear, but at the same time had a strong sense of responsibility. Not only is she defending herself, but she is also representing all the women and people of color in the military. She silently prayed that the mayor would arrive in time to help. When the mayor appeared, Lysandra felt a new wave of hope. The mayor, with a serious expression, quickly grasped the situation. Lysandra saw the support in his eyes, as if he understood what she was going through. She was relieved to know that she was not alone in this fight. The mayor intervened immediately, criticizing Riley's actions and asking him to lay down his arms. Lysandra felt a sense of justice rise in her heart. Eventually, someone stood up for her, and this gave her the strength to keep fighting. She stood upright, proud, when she saw the mayor condemning the abuse of power. Throughout the confrontation, Lysandra faced fear and injustice. But when the mayor committed to investigating the case, she felt like a huge burden was lifted from her shoulders. His intervention was not only a support for her, but also a sign that the system could change. She knew that this was an opportunity to speak up for others who were also suffering from discrimination and abuse of power. Lysandra felt her determination strengthened. Not only did she want to protect herself, but she also wanted to make sure that this would not happen to anyone else. With the mayor's support, she is determined not to be silent about injustice, and will do all she can to promote change in the community. After the mayor intervenes and asks Officer Riley to lay down his arms, the atmosphere of tension gradually subsides. However, the feeling of anxiety still lingered in Lysandra's heart. She knew that what had just happened was not just a personal confrontation, but an event that could have a major impact on Miller's career. When Riley was suspended, his eyes were filled with anger and shame. Lysandra sensed the frustration and sarcasm in his actions. She couldn't help but feel a little sympathy for him, but at the same time, she also understood that Riley's behavior had exceeded the limit and needed to be dealt with. Riley stood there, her face flushed, unable to accept that she had lost this confrontation. He felt like the whole world was collapsing around him. His career, which was built on a foundation of power and respect, is now under threat. Lysandra found that he felt ashamed not only of his actions but also of the judgment of his colleagues and the community. As Riley left the scene, Lysandra felt a sense of justice rise in her heart. However, she couldn't help but think about the long-term consequences he would face. His actions not only affected himself but also the image of the police force. She understood that this was a painful lesson not only for Riley, but for all those in power. Lysandra felt her determination even stronger. She knew that handling Riley was not only a personal punishment but also a step forward in the fight against discrimination and abuse of power. She hopes that the incident will open up an important dialogue about how law enforcement needs to change in the service of fairness and equality. When she followed Miller's figure, Lysandra saw not only the downfall of a human being, but also an opportunity to create positive change in society. She was determined that she would not let fear or discrimination dominate her life or anyone else's. She will continue to stand up and fight for justice, not just for herself but for all those who are facing the same injustices. After the tense incident with Officer George Miller, Colonel Lysandra felt a strong sense of responsibility rise in her heart. She knew that she couldn't just stand still. She needs to take action to ensure that such injustices don't happen again. The pressure from this event made her feel like she was carrying out a great mission. Lysandra began holding meetings with like-minded people in the community, including local leaders, NGOs, and ordinary citizens. She shares her story, not only to call for support, but also to encourage others to speak up about similar experiences. She feels that sharing personal experiences will create a powerful wave, helping people realize that they are not alone in the fight against discrimination. As news of her incident spread, the response from the public was mixed. Many expressed support and sympathy, while others expressed skepticism and criticism. Lysandra felt anxiety rise when she read the negative comments, but she decided not to let them demotivate her. She understands that change always comes with opposition, and it's important to be consistent with her goals. She organizes a public workshop where people can participate and share their opinions. Lysandra stood on the podium, nervous but also determined. She spoke about the importance of protecting the rights of people who are discriminated against, and encouraged people to act together to create change. Her eyes lit up when she saw the approval and support from the attendees. When the workshop ended, Lysandra received many compliments and thanks from the participants. They feel inspired and motivated to stand up for their own rights. She felt an overflowing joy, as if her efforts had begun to make a positive impact. Inside, however, Lysandra also felt worried about the barriers she would face in the future. She knows that this fight will not be easy, and there will be many challenges ahead. But with the support of the community and her determination, she feels stronger than ever. Lysandra realized that her advocacy was not only a personal battle, but also a fight for all those who were suffering injustice. She is determined to continue this journey, not only for herself but also to create a better future for all. When Colonel Lysandra received the results of the investigation into Officer George Miller, she felt a mixed wave of emotions rise in her heart. She had put in all her heart and effort to ensure that the truth would come out. And now, when the final result came, she couldn't help but feel nervous. As she read the report, Lysandra felt a deep sense of disappointment. Although there was clear evidence of Miller's misconduct, the conclusion of the investigation was milder than she expected. This makes her feel like her efforts have not been properly recognized. She wondered if discrimination and abuse of power still existed in the system, despite her and the community's efforts. She felt angry, not only at the results of the investigation but also at herself for placing so much hope in a change that seemed impossible. Lysandra knew that if she didn't act immediately, these injustices would continue. The determination in her rose again. She could not let these failures falter her. Lysandra decided to hold a press conference to announce the results of the investigation. She wants people to know that while the system may have failed, she will not give up on her fight. When standing in front of a crowd of reporters, she felt nervous but also full of determination. She spoke about the shortcomings in the investigation, while also calling for support from the community to request an independent investigation. Her mood at this time is a combination of sadness and hope. She knew that publicizing these inadequacies could expose her to criticism, but she also understood that it was a necessary step to bring about change. She felt she was doing the right thing. After the press conference, the response from the public was very strong. Many people expressed their sympathy with her and called for change. Lysandra feels empowered by this support. She understood that although the war was long, she was not alone. Others are also standing up for fairness. The results of the investigation are not only information but also a motivation for Lysandra to continue her struggle. She is determined not to let difficulties or failures deter her. She will continue to call for change, not only for herself but for all those who are suffering injustice in society. When Colonel Lysandra noticed the public response after the press conference about the results of the investigation, she felt a sense of hope and determination. Letters, texts, and calls from supporters created a wave of positivity, making her realize that her fight was not just a personal issue but had become a larger movement. Lysandra felt proud to see more people start speaking out about the injustices they faced. She realized that her courage had sparked a fighting spirit in the community, and this made her feel that she was no longer alone. However, she also feels a heavier responsibility, knowing that she is leading a movement that can change the social situation. She decided to hold a big conference to bring together voices from all over the world. In her mind, this is not just an event but an opportunity to connect like-minded people, so that they can share their stories and find common solutions. Lysandra was excited but also worried about whether she would be able to put on a successful event. As the day of the conference approached, she spent hours preparing. She reached out to speakers, activists, and influencers in the community. Every call, every meeting made her feel a new strength rising in her heart. She understands that this is an opportunity to make real change. At the conference, when she stepped on stage, Lysandra felt nervous but also full of determination. She looked out at the crowd and saw familiar faces who had supported her all this time. She began to speak, her voice full of enthusiasm, conveying a message about the need to fight for justice and equality. She found that people's stories are not just personal experiences but also demonstrations of the need to change the system. Each story brings power, and Lysandra feels like she's in the middle of a great movement. When the conference ended, she felt a sense of joy. Participants not only left the event feeling inspired, but also determined to take action. Lysandra understands that the impact of this event will spread even further, encouraging many others to stand up and fight for their own rights. She clearly felt that her efforts had begun to make a broader impact, not only in the community but also in society as a whole. Lysandra is determined to continue to act, not only for herself but also for all those who are hungry for justice and equality. She knows that the road ahead will be difficult, but with the strength of the community next to her, she believes that anything can change. When Colonel Lysandra announced the results of the investigation and held the conference, she could not have expected the reaction from the community to be so strong. As soon as the information was broadcast, a wave of feedback from residents, activists, and even social organizations hit. She felt both nervous and excited to see people start to care and get involved in the fight for justice. When reading the comments and messages, Lysandra clearly felt the support from everyone. Many people share their stories, the traumatic experiences and injustices they have endured. This made her feel deeply sympathetic, but also raised a worry, whether she would be able to lead the movement to success. She saw that not only her, but many others were hungry for change. Heated discussions took place on social media, and she noticed that there were many conflicting opinions. Some enthusiastically supported her, while others criticized and doubted her abilities. This made Lysandra feel pressured, but also motivated her. She understands that in order to create change, she needs to be consistent and not let criticism hold her back. Lysandra decided to hold small gatherings to listen to the community's opinions. She wants to create a safe space for people to share and discuss the issues they are facing. During these meetings, she felt the power of solidarity. People begin to connect with each other, form relationships, and support each other. This made her feel more hopeful than ever. When she saw more and more people joining the movement, Lysandra felt proud but also full of responsibility. She knew that she represented not only herself but also all those who spoke up and those who remained silent. She is determined to be a strong voice, not only to defend her rights, but also to protect the rights of all those who are oppressed. The community response created a great impetus, and Lysandra felt she was in the midst of a revolution. She knew that her work was not finished. She needs to continue to appeal for support, organize more events, and maintain public attention on this issue. Her mood at this time is a combination of faith and responsibility. She believes that together, they can create a positive change in society.